Greetings and welcome to episode 11 of Spiritual Practices for Tough Times. I hope you're well today as we gather, and thank you for joining us for another episode as we continue our journey through these tough times together. It's hard to believe that every day is something new, something's changing, another announcement. Sometimes there seems to be hope, and other times it's overwhelming, and we just wonder what's going to happen next. So thank you for taking a moment, I'd like to say for yourself, to find a bit of peace, a bit of calm, maybe just to be present to who you are no matter what is happening and what are you feeling and what is happening in the world, because all we have is this present moment. So I invite now to light a candle as we stay away from Yoda here. We light a candle each of our sessions to remind ourselves that there is a sacred light that shines within you and me and all our world, even in these tough times. And we light this candle also as a reminder for our heartfelt prayers and attention to all those who are on the front line right now of COVID-19 and our economic tough times. And maybe you have a cup of tea or coffee, or if you're watching this later in the day, something that's a little stronger. It always reminds me of a moment of communion. That's the simple things in life that connect us. A cup of tea, having a meal, looking outside and seeing the coming of nature. All these things remind me, and I hope they remind you too, that we are connected together through a sacred flow and presence that holds all of us in these tough times. How about we begin our time with a moment of meditation, a moment where we just let go into this space, let go and to be present to our bodies and our hearts and minds. So I invite you to put your feet on the floor, to gently put your hands on your lap, to close your eyes, and we're going to do a breathing exercise and a guided meditation. I just invite you to become present to this moment in your body and yourself as we gather today. So I just invite you now to close your eyes. I'll ring the meditation bell to begin. I invite you to take a deep breath in. Breathe in. And with each breath you take, I invite you to become more fully present to your body. As you breathe in, begin to feel the soles of your feet. And as you breathe out, just let your thoughts go. Let what's worrying you go. As you breathe in, I invite you to begin to feel the top of your head. And as you breathe out, I invite you to let go of all the stuff that's waiting for you. Maybe stuff you've been procrastinating or don't know how to handle. Just breathe in. Be present to your body. Be present to where you're sitting. Be present to the presence that flows in you. As you breathe in, let go into the presence that flows in you. It's always flowing. It's always emerging. no matter what you're thinking, what you think you've done right or wrong, how you judge what you think other people are thinking about you, no matter what emotions might be tormenting you or coaxing you or wanting you to do. Just breathe in gently, fully, deeply. With each breath you take, maybe you'll start to feel that your body is expanding, or you'll feel the tension relieving in your heart area. You'll start to feel this intimate presence that you can't explain intellectually. You might feel vibrancy of energy, a lightness, an intimacy, a presence. Just breathe into that. Trust. Breathe and let go. Breathe and be here. And as we end this conscious time of being present and breathing, I invite you to slowly open your eyes. And as you do you see a moment of beauty or joy or feel a sense of gratitude, even in these tough times? How do you feel in your body now? Does your mind seem a little quieter? Do you feel that sense of underlying calm? It's amazing for me, even leading you in this time of meditation, I feel a bit more present in my body. I feel my mind is a little quieter and clearer, and there is this underlying sense of calm. You know, there's this wonderful tribute or witness in our human history that there have been thousands upon thousands of people who have gone through great suffering and great joy in their lives. And they have written poetry and books and made art of how even in these tough times, they're able to find hope, they're able to find sustenance and strength to live through what's ever happening. And they do that not by excluding reality or by trying to imagine themselves in some other dimension of unicorns and fairies and all these lovely things. But somehow they're able to live their lives in the present moment and work with what's ever happening. And I hope as we continue these series on spiritual practices for tough times is that we're helping each other find how we can live that way too. Because life is like that. We never know when there's going to be a curveball thrown our way. Either a curveball of something amazing happening that we weren't expecting, or the times we're living in, where we feel we have no more control. We don't know what the future is going to look like. And before COVID-19 came, those things happened when we experienced great loss, or we failed at a relationship, or we were suddenly diagnosed with an illness that we were never expecting, Maybe someone betrayed us, all sorts of things. But right now we're being called into this time of spiritual evolution. And spiritual practices are a really gentle and easy way to help develop and cultivate spiritual awareness and spiritual presence so that we can become more present to ourselves and those we're living with, and how to react in more positive and calm ways. And so today I'd like to explore with you one of those ways is by the practice of letting go. The practice of letting go. And the practice of letting go is one of letting go of attachments to negative or judgmental thoughts, because that's very much part of our human experience. You might even say spiritual practices are also the practice of letting go of becoming too deluded or addicted to happy emotions or things turning out the way we want to. So it can be either side of the scale. Negative, judgmental thoughts, or being addicted to thoughts of happiness and success. And so spiritual practices help us sort of come to the middle and find a balance and calmness to that. Now, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but for myself, negative and judgmental thoughts, well, they can be so heavy, and they can just sort of glom on to our hearts and our awareness and our seeing, so that it's so hard to shake them. And partly during these tough times, I'm starting to limit myself from all the news and all the internet and websites, because it just seems that just sort of takes me into my own anxiety, my own negativity, my own judgmental thoughts. And one of the and what happens then is that when we get to sort of attached to all this negative thinking or this judgment of ourselves and others, is that we close ourselves off to life. And what we do is we close ourselves off to this present moment, which is all we have here. It reminds me of this Green Renaissance video. They're videographers out of South Africa, and they're exploring this with Margie Milan, who talks about how can we keep moving from places of failure or brokenness or places of negativity and judgment to be able to find something new in our lives. And so we hear from her now.
If I had to choose between a painting and a beautiful bowl, I would go for the beautiful bowl. I mean, I'm trying to imagine what it's like to eat off a painting. Oh dear, 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 dear. So it's very important for me, if I'm going to make anything, that it has a good reason to be made. Oh, where's my tea? If I've dropped something like a teapot, oh my, 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 after making a teapot and it's dropped, it's like my heart drops. I picked up the shards and found that the shards are so beautiful in themselves. To pick up something small and something very beautiful out of something bigger that's been broken. It's like I'm seeing it a new way. It's like I've never seen the inside of the pot before. We're always focusing on perfection and whole things. But nothing can be whole, the reality is. Things can be beautiful in their brokenness. So for me, sometimes it's not necessary that we get fixed. It's not necessary to be stuck together or glued together with gold or whatever. A piece is good enough. A piece of it, a piece of life. It's good enough. Struggles in life, they're part of our journey. There's two sides to it. You could say, whoa, she failed at bringing up her family, she had a broken marriage. You can heap it up, and there can be shame, and there can be all those things. And the other side of it, you've got this amazing journey that you're living it out, and you're a survivor, and you're carrying through it all, and which is the more valuable, which is more purposeful. Failure is not a shameful thing. It's necessary. If we were too scared to fail, we wouldn't even attempt anything. We wouldn't even be brave or have the courage to live out this life. So we work through our failures, we survive, but something new comes out of it. And that was a quote that I picked up a while ago. The more you fail, the more you succeed. It is only when everything is lost and instead of giving up, you go on, that you experience the momentary prospect of some slight progress. Suddenly you have the feeling, be it an illusion or not, that something new has opened up. From something that is broken in pieces is a great opportunity for something completely different. Keep moving from a place of failure, or brokenness, to be able to find that something new. People celebrate their successes. I don't know of anybody having a celebration of their failures. But you have to have imagination, I think, to see that, huh?
So this is a different way to sort of look at our lives and what's happening in our reality. A couple things. Spiritual practices aren't here for us to be perfect. Spiritual practices are here for us to help work with life in whatever form it comes, in success or failure, in joy or challenge, in hardship, in death, in birth, in all of life. Because what spiritual practices do are a couple things. They help us learn to fail, but they also help us learn to be present to what's ever happening and to hold whatever is happening in our hearts and minds with gentleness and non-judgmental, non-violent compassion. Because I'd like to say and give you a little warning here. If you decide to start a spiritual practice consistent in your life, and I would really encourage you to consider this during these tough times. It's the perfect time to do it. Or if you find yourself in other tough times just because of normal life, just try 2 minutes. They say you can change a habit, change something in your life by doing it 2 minutes a day. If you try to do it too much, too fast at the beginning, you lose the will. So maybe try just doing mindful walking for 2 minutes where you let go of your thoughts. Or try doing mindful breathing for 2 minutes sometime during the day at the same time for 2 minutes. A couple things will happen. First of all, you'll work with failure. You'll learn that part of any spiritual practice is failure. And it's all right to fail. And what is the failure is that we'll be going along, we'll be letting go, we'll be breathing, we'll be doing our walking, or maybe you're doing centering, prayer, or yoga, and suddenly you'll get caught up in negative or judgmental thoughts or addicted to thoughts that will produce success. And that's okay. We don't judge ourselves. We just let go. We come back into the present moment. So a spiritual practice, I hope you're seeing this, will help us learn how to fail gracefully, how to fail without judging ourselves, and how failure is okay. So we'll let go of the thought. We'll let go of the negative emotions. We'll let go of those negative thoughts that go down the trail that this won't work, or this is going to happen, or the world's coming to an end. And you'll just let go. You'll let go and come back to your mindful walking, or your mindful breathing, or your centering prayer, or your meditation, or your yoga, or your knitting meditation. There's so many out there. But the other thing that we're going to discover in these mindful meditative practices, though, is that there's going to be all sorts of thoughts that we had never imagined before coming up. That we think that, oh my goodness, I have these negative thoughts, or I have these things happening. We're going to have these things come up. It reminds me of this Headspace video, which talks about that it's normal to have even more negative thoughts come up sometimes when we do spiritual practices.
One of the most challenging parts of meditation is what's sometimes called the dark side of the mind. These are the thoughts and fantasies that we'd rather didn't appear in the mind. Whether they're exciting, violent, vengeful, or maybe even sadistic in nature. We might think we shouldn't be experiencing them. But these thoughts are perfectly natural, and there's obviously no need to act on them. But why do they seem to appear more often once we begin to meditate? Well, typically, we go through our day with quite a heavy filter on the mind, blocking out these thoughts that we don't like, either habitually or intentionally. When we block them out habitually, we're unaware that it's even taking place. We're just so caught up in our day-to-day thinking. But by meditating, we're creating more space in the mind. So it's not that there are more of these thoughts, we just see them more clearly. But when we're blocking them out intentionally, we already see the thoughts clearly, but we're resisting them, perhaps fearful of what they say about us as a person. But what meditation shows us is that we're not our thoughts. So there's no need to judge them, to identify with them. We see that they don't make us a mean person, a terrible person, a twisted person. And it's through this process that we discover peace of mind, allowing thoughts to come and go, at ease with the mind, exactly as it is.
So this is one of the characteristics and maybe gifts of being on a spiritual journey, and also practicing spiritual practices. It's about how we become whole people and accept the whole of reality and work with that in our practice. Because that's what we're experiencing right now with COVID-19. It's like all these negative thoughts and these things that are deepest fears, they're becoming realized in the world outside of us. And so either we begin to work with them in a conscious and practical way, or they're just going to grab hold onto us and take us for a ride. And so as we begin to learn about spiritual practice, we have to give ourselves the space that it's not about being perfect. It's not about getting anywhere. It's not about doing anything right. It's like learning to ride a bike. It's like learning how to swim. In this Headspace video, they sort of compare learning to meditate or do spiritual practices to learning to ride a bike.
One of the things you'll notice about learning meditation is that there's a lot of repetition. In many ways, it's the same as learning any new skill. If we want to refine things, the only way to do it is by repeating it over and over again. Of course, after a little while, we might not be quite so dependent on the instruction, but it's still there if we need it. It gives us a framework to refer to as we continue learning through direct experience. So as you move through these daily meditations, sure, there are some core elements that are ever present, that will become very familiar. But every single day is different. Because even if you're doing the same technique today that you did yesterday, the mind is different. And therefore the experience is different. So as much as possible, approach each day lightly, as though it's the very first time you've witnessed the mind. If you can maintain this sense of playfulness and curiosity, then there'll always be something new to learn.
So I hope you see that as we're exploring the practice of letting go, it's an essential part of any spiritual practice. The essential part of a spiritual practice is this letting go of everything as we're doing our practice, whether that's conscious breathing, whether that is mindful walking outside, whether that is your yoga moves or your postures, whether that's knitting meditation and paying attention to your purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, whether that's a centering prayer where when you get caught in a thought or sensation, you go back to your sacred word. The practice is about letting go. It's sort of strange for us where we're always taught to hold on to strive, to make progress. And part of a spiritual practice, though, is to let go. Because by letting go, we come into a natural state of awareness, a natural state of being, where we're much able more to work with what's emerging instead of trying to hold on to and cling and force life. Life is not forced. Life is a flow. And so I'd like to invite you to think about this if you're willing to, is that here's another way to look at spiritual practices. Spiritual practices are about observing your mind without judging or without interacting with it for a specific amount of time. And by doing that, then it helps you when you're really busy to have that same perspective. Headspace, this Headspace video here, talks about it as sitting and watching vehicles go by on the road.
Training the mind is often quite different to how people imagine it to be. Maybe they have an idea it's about stopping thoughts or eliminating feelings, but the reality is a bit different. An easy way to think of it is to imagine yourself sitting on the side of a busy road, the passing cars representing the thoughts and the feelings. All you have to do is to sit there and watch the cars. Sounds easy, right? But what usually happens is that we feel a bit unsettled by the movement of the traffic. So we run out into the road and try and stop the cars, or maybe even chase after a few, forgetting that the idea was to just sit here. And of course, all of this running around only adds to the feeling of restlessness in the mind. So training the mind is about changing our relationship with the passing thoughts and feelings, learning how to view them with a little more perspective. And when we do this, we naturally find a place of calm. Will we sometimes forget the idea of the exercise and become distracted? Of course we will. But as soon as we remember, here we are, back on the side of the road again, just watching the traffic go by, perfectly at ease in both body and mind.
So to end our time today, I'd like to invite us into a different type of maybe spiritual practice or meditation than you've done before. Maybe you have done it. So what I'm going to do is, after I ring the bell, I'm going to invite us to imagine that instead of sitting on the side of the road, which is, for me, I don't like roads. It's too crazy, and who wants to sit with a bunch of pollution coming at you? Imagine that you're sitting by a stream. And imagine that the stream is your stream of consciousness and thoughts. And all the different perceptions and thoughts you have are little boats flowing down the stream. And so what we'll do as we sit there with our thoughts is we'll just watch our thoughts go by. And what happens, though, is if we decide to jump on one of the little boats because we want to fix that thought, or we don't like that thought, or we judge it, or we want to dam up the stream because we don't like what the feelings are, or we get lost in imagination because we jump on the love boat and decide to go somewhere, or anything like that, is that then we gently, just non-judgmentally, we don't think of it as a failure, is that we just let go and come back to the side of the stream and sit there again. Maybe come back to our breathing, or just come back and be present. Is that okay with you? You think we can try that? Well, try it. It's an experiment. If it doesn't work with you, it's okay. So I invite you to, as we do always, just to sit, close your eyes. I'll ring the meditation bell here to begin. And as we begin, I'll invite you to imagine that you're sitting on a side of a stream. Maybe you hear the sound, or you can maybe even want to watch the stream that's on your screen right now. And just take a breath. Become conscious of your breathing. Then you might want to imagine that you're actually in the forest by the stream. And just allow yourself to be present. Imagine the forest around you. There's no mosquitoes today, don't worry. There's no horseflies. It's just one of those lovely days. The sound of nature's around you. The soft sunlight is there. A gentle stream is flowing by. And just stay with your breath. Just breathe in and breathe out. Imagine all your thoughts, whatever comes up, are just flowing down the stream. As you breathe in. I don't know, maybe you jumped on one of those boats. If you have, it's okay. Remember, just let go. Take a conscious breath in and a conscious breath out. Now I'm going to be quiet for a second here, and I'm going to just let you practice that for a few moments here. Remember just to come back to your breath if you get on the love boat, or the judgment boat, or the worry boat, or the self-hate boat, or the doubt boat, or this is too much boat, or oh my God, what's going to happen, or I can't do this boat. And just come back to your breath. You try it. Remember, a spiritual practice is not about being perfect. It's about working with who you are, just as you are, with whatever is coming up, and to hold everything with non-violent, non-judgmental compassion. I invite you to just slowly open your eyes. I don't know if it for you, but for a lot of people, sometimes spiritual practices seem really silly or stupid or a waste of time. I can tell you personally, and from anecdotes from millions of people for thousands of years, this is not something that's new or I've just invented. This has been part of all the great spiritual, mystical traditions. What they find and what experience shows is that by consistently doing some type of spiritual practice, no matter what's happening in your life, that over time, what you discover when you let go is there's this deep spaciousness in you. There's this deep reservoir in you. What you discover is that the universe is always helping you. It's always there. The divine, the sacred, whatever word you'd like to use, you discover that there's this immutable, infinite presence in you, with you, and of you. So I hope you find this. I hope you touch this in your life, in your practice, and in the days coming up. And thank you for joining us once again. And may you find these blessings in these moments of joy and beauty in gratitude. And remember, there's no failure, just practice. Take care, and look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.